where I would love to start. Leezá and I really, really just love knowing not only who you are, where you're coming from. It's always nice to kind of have some geographical placement, an idea of where people are in the world. But the thing that we would love for you to notice when you come in is kind of what state you're in. How are you feeling? Where are you coming from? I don't mean state like we're in the United States. I mean your inner state. Like, what's the state you're in emotionally? What's the state you're in your head? What's going on with you? And let you notice that and drop that into chat. So let's just start with that before we do any other introductions. I want to see how everybody's doing. What's your state right now when you landed in the meeting? Was it anticipation? Was it, oh my gosh, I've got 20 things I should be doing and I'm doing this instead? In which case I am grateful that you are here. What's your state right now? Isn't it just amazing how seldom we check in with ourselves? Like, you may not have asked yourself that question all day or even all week. Like, what's my state of being right now? Beautiful. It's 10 p.m. That's right. It's really late where you are, Monica. Yeah. Long day. Really wanted to be here. I would call that state commitment. I am in a state of commitment, right? Harry just got home, still eating. Beautiful. Enjoy your meal and take this as an opportunity to take a deep breath along with your food. Jody, state overwhelmed. Need more time in my day, week, month. Well, if you figure out how to make that happen, please share. I could make good use of more time, right? Excited and at peace. Well, Karen, darling, that's you.
It is now.
That's you. Love it. Love it. Amy, state, learning, new side gig, celebrations. We're going to talk about celebrations today. So I'm going to be looking at you, watching you celebrate over there. There, Jody, now you got your camera where I'm like looking, but Jody's right there in the middle of my screen. So it's working.
To acknowledge the recording and it was on a different screen. User error. Thank you.
Yeah, we get so efficient we can't find half of the communication.
Yeah.
I get it. Well, thank you all for sharing that. A state for me, and this is something that I just love to check in with. Like, what's your orientation? What's your state of being? And is that what you choose? It's always like, if I'm feeling whatever, it's a reminder to myself that I can choose. Like, I can choose how I'm feeling. So, like, I would love for you to ask the next question, and that is, how would you like your state of being to be when we wrap up today? What would you like to be when you go back to your day after your commitment of being here? And maybe you're not here for a transformation of state. Karen, darling, please don't change. If you're excited and at peace, you may not want a different state, but maybe you want a different state of being, a different way to show up for yourself, a different way to show up to what you're doing, accomplished and happy, more relaxed, more trusting in me. Yeah. Just let yourself know what's the intention, centered and energized, inspired. Love it. So see, very quickly, you check in, you set an intention, and now we know where we're orienting from and where we're headed, right? So let me do some of the solid, all my pieces in place. What a beautiful way to put it, Amy. I love it. Let me get some of all the things that you need to know. First of all, some of you may not know, I'm Dixie Gillaspie. If you're looking at the screen, you probably know that because we're labeled in 6 Ways from Sunday, right? But normally I co-host this with Lisa Steindorf. So normally we're a 2-person team and we kind of trade off doing a little presentation and then leading some breakout sessions and discussion. So you won't get Leezá today, but usually that's the way that we do the Conscious Leadership Roundtable. So a little bit about why we decided to do that. It's and why conscious leadership. So much of what we do in leadership is bringing things into consciousness. It's really, what can we make conscious? Because leadership is all about going from one place to another place, right? Conscious, change, intentional direction. And what we can't bring into conscious space, we can't intentionally change. You can't intentionally change what you're not conscious of. So it's really that sense of being conscious in our leadership, being aware and recognizing what is, so that we can create what we want to create. So our intention when we started this was really to facilitate some clarity on conscious leadership, to get some insight into how we live and lead consciously, and really to support the integration of consciousness into our lives and leadership. People like, what's the definition of a leader? And I'm all like, it's really starts with, where are we leading ourselves? Which is why I love starting with knowing where we are, where we're oriented, and where we're going. So that's really, what Leezá and I had as an intention when we started this. Right now, we're offering these monthly immersive sessions. So some teaching, some coaching, group discussions, but it's all about deepening and expanding your leadership presence and abilities. So we really want to be curious, respectful, welcoming, because it's LeadHERship Global. It's mostly, of course, as females. Occasionally we'll have somebody drop in from our I don't know whether I would call them our brother network, our other network, but C-suite network. Occasionally we'll have some guys that would love to join us. So, but right now it's all us women. So LeadHERship Global, if you're not familiar with it, I think several of you are members. I see a few people that I don't recognize as members of LeadHERship Global. So let me give you a little background on that, and then we'll get started on our topic for today. So LeadHERship Global is really about, cultivating authentic relationships with women. So it's really about rising together, acting with courage to pursue your purpose, dedicating yourself fully to the path that you choose and the outcomes that you desire. Be curious, open your mind, being a lifetime learner. And really, I love this one because it ties in with our topic today, to celebrate each other and build meaningful memories and share the love. The credo for LeadHERship Global, super, super important that we start on this premise. So really considering those positive things that impact our lives, accelerate our success, and create a safe space for dialogue and collaboration. So, so that's what we're really, really founded in today in this discussion. Let me check the waiting room. I don't want to leave anybody hanging. So I'm going to ask all of you, what are you celebrating today? What are you celebrating? See, I told you, Amy, I was going to be watching for you to yes, I got some celebrations. But really, what are the celebrations? I would love, can we just take just a couple minutes? And if you're willing, just unmute if I call on you. If you're not willing, I'll give you a space and you cannot. I am going to start with Amy. One, because she's in the upper corner of my screen. Two, because clearly she's got a celebration. What are you celebrating today?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I wear a lot of hats, but one of my little side gigs is starting, and that is to be the editorial coordinator for a local publisher, one of those lifestyle publishers, but it's in Frisco, Texas, and it's a big thing. And so it's a neat, I think, divine connection that was made, and I'm ready to start. And then the other thing I will be hosting some of the different leadership webinars like this over the next few months. I think that I'll be taking the place of Linda. She's doing other things, so I will be hosting these as well. So that to me is super exciting because I'm a former educator and I love to be in front of people, and I love to present. So this is kind of right up my alley.
Yeah. So notice there are events to celebrate, but really that it's right up your alley, and you're excited about not only the things you get to do, but because they're so aligned for you. Love it. Karen, you are on the other side of my screen. Got anything you're willing to share?
Let me unmute. I have been enjoying, especially the last 2 or 3 months of my life, in a way that I've never experienced before. So what I will say is that I've been in many leadership roles in corporate life and through networking and so forth over my 30 plus year career and I enjoyed all of that. I still am very supportive of people in those roles, but I found that there comes a point in your life when you have the opportunity, and I'm in those legacy years is what I call them, to focus more on really following your bliss and what it is you want to do after you've done all these other things. And it's really pretty cool, I have to admit. And now I'm taking better care of myself mentally and physically and preparing myself for this next phase, which is half the fun, honestly. It's not like I'm wishing my life away. I'm actually experiencing it right now in a very positive way. But so I say I'm very supportive of leadership in women in the ways that I can be. I don't want to be out front and center anymore. I'm past that stage now, but I get to pick and choose now. And that's what I celebrate. I think all of us need to get to that stage where no matter where we are, but when you get to my age, it's a lot easier. So, and I'm just happy to be in the space with all of you. That's a celebration in itself.
It is, and for me, it's a celebration that Karen's here. She's been my photographer of choice for 15 years, maybe longer. Like, I just hesitate to get in front of anybody else's camera. So for Karen to be joining us is a personal celebration for me. Monica, you're kind of next on my screen.
I think I am celebrating stepping more into my visionary role, owning that. And it's scary and cool at the same time. And I find that, the biggest, the scary stuff usually ends up being the good stuff.
There's a celebration right there, is that you noticed that.
So like whenever I go into a backlash these days, I'm like, ooh, something good is coming. And that's feels like a courageous space to finally hold.
Thank you. You all, by the way, are basically doing my presentation for me. I'll unpack for you what you all just did, but it's beautiful. Jody, what are you celebrating?
I am celebrating the near hire of my next assistant, who has been sought out after over 2 years, and hopefully this one sticks.
We'll celebrate that you have that opportunity, right?
Help is on the way.
Nice. Edie, we're just kind of going around quick. What are you celebrating right now? Because our topic today is celebration. Oh, need you to unmute. Yep.
Good. There we go. What am I celebrating? Well, I just did another TED Talk.
Yay!
And yeah, it's my second one, and is AI and digital dopamine making us dumb? And it is. And so I'm committed. I'm in my 80th year, and the next 20 years is to save the brain. And I have gotten the domain, the other AI. So I'm the AI alternative. I don't put down AI. But the message is that we focus less on making AI better and more on AI making us better to serve humanity well. So that's what I'm about.
Love it. Big celebrations. Hey, Christy. Thanks for being here. I'm going to ask you to unmute, though.
Okay.
There we go. What are you celebrating?
Yay. I am, first of all, I'm celebrating that I'm actually speaking to you. It's been way too long. But I'm also celebrating, I have this wonderful client that I've been working with now for over a year. And he went into the hospital last week. And it happened while I was with him. And I'm celebrating that through my past history as my mother's caregiver for all those years, that I knew when something was not going right, when he needed help, I was able to get that help for him. I was able to help his wife through learning how to be a bedside caregiver, only temporarily, fortunately, throughout, a hospitalization, and how to advocate for him and how to, recognize the bed is wet, things like that. And I thought, you know, my mother used to always tell me nothing you learn is wasted. And it's so true. And, oh, you know, thank you, Mommy, for giving me those lessons so that I was able to help this dear friend of mine, client and dear friend of mine who's now back home. So that's a great celebration for me.
It is. It is. And it is good to see you too. It has been a long time.
It has.
If you're finished with the meal that you waited so long for and you can pop on camera, there she is. What are you celebrating besides you finally got to eat?
Yeah, I got home late after an appointment. In the moment, I'm celebrating friendships with different friends, male and female. And also the fact that I recognize more that if when I speak and I hear myself and I notice that, do I really want to say that or do I want to change that, that I start rephrasing it either in my mind or out loud to myself or write it down or something like that. So I'm excited about that.
You're gonna notice that pop up in the little presentation today, that kind of celebration. Love it. I've got several people off camera. I'm just still gonna go in order because I'd love to hear from everybody. Deborah just turned her camera on. That answers my question. What are you celebrating?
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. I didn't know where I was at in your screenshot. Celebrating, well, I posted in the chat, but speaking with my web designer today, and I finally got all the verbiage I needed for each of the things that she's doing for me done. And so I handed it all over to her. And that's been kind of a lot.
Not sure which you're celebrating more, getting that done or getting it back to her and saying, it's you now, right?
Both.
Both. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. If you're willing to share, could you just turn your camera on? That solves me calling on somebody who isn't wanting to share today. So if you can and you want to share, Nicole, there we go. What are you celebrating, dear?
Thanks, Dixie. Hi, everyone. So actually, I will turn my camera back on after, just because to save on bandwidth, because otherwise I get kicked out altogether. So just wanted to let you know that. What I'm celebrating, I spent about 28 years in a male-dominated field, and just last year, not quite a year, I joined a project, and it's mostly women, and we're having a blast, and we're really pushing the envelope, and we're coming up with some really great ideas, and I just really enjoy coming to work with this group of people, and we're doing some amazing work, so I celebrate that, because I will have to go back to my old job in about a year.
But you won't go back as the same you that left that before.
Exactly.
That is a big celebration.
Yeah.
Love it. Love
Thank
it.
you.
Tony, Rachel, there you are. There you are. What are you celebrating?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Usually it's just well, some of you know the speaker issues, so let me put the little thing on. Celebrating. It's a weird celebration, but I think it's good because it's a noticing celebration with boundaries. And I have been really trying to pay attention how much and how easy and quick I am to move my stuff to support others, but then letting my stuff to fall to the wayside. And when I stand for the boundaries and I tell other people, like Sunday I was coaching someone through a boundary thing and I'm like, you can do this. You know, it was crazy. It wasn't even 30 seconds. And somebody came up and was like, oh, I really need help with this. Can you please help me with this? And I was like, but, and I didn't want to leave this person in a lurch. And it's like, why did I think I had to be the only person? And then when I got home after that evening, I was like, did I really want to do that? No, I didn't. Did I really want to stop middle of the way and keep going? No, I didn't. Why did I go through? So it's just paying attention to what whatever I need to notice that is keeping me from going forward in intentional time on my projects, because I love supporting others and seeing their wins. But I don't like seeing that to the, not the exclusion, but to the lack of stewardship of my time to my projects.
Yeah. Rachel knows that one of the things that I encourage people to celebrate is the superpower of noticing. Like where you can start, again, it's that when we have it in conscious space, then we can make decisions about it. If it's not in conscious space, then we just keep rolling on default. So that's a great celebration. Tony, Deborah just joined. So Deborah, we are sharing a few celebrations. And Buva, if you can, any of you can turn your camera on. And if you don't want to share, just leave your camera off and I'll have my answer. and it's all good.
I can share, but I'm at work, so I'm not able to be on camera.
That's good too. I just didn't want to be calling on people and have them not where they can share. What are you celebrating?
So I'm launching my own consulting business. So I am building a website. It's almost there, ready to go end of the month. So I'm excited about that. Just today, like someone mentioned earlier, finished all my content and it's ready for design and publish.
Yeah, those celebrations are the big ones. Love it. Love it. Tony, Deborah, either of you want to share before we get into the material for today? Nope. All right. So celebration. I am going to share my screen. I don't use a lot of slides, but I have a few just to help us remember some things today. So let me get into the presentation mode. There we go. So celebration, it's good for you. It absolutely is. So why is it not? I may have to stop the share for a minute. For some reason, I lost. This is why I like a tech person on with me, because I lost my immersive view. There we go. There we go. Yep. That will probably give me a better view for sharing. Now I can share my screen and keep the chat. Zoom keeps moving things around. Anybody else notice that? Like you just think you know where everything is, and then they've moved the options. So what you all just did is you basically gave yourself a little shot in the arm of quite a few chemicals that are just kind of like our own little pharmacy of feel-good stuff. Really, we could say that the chemicals that are produced when we're in true celebration are the antidote to stress. So celebrations release all the feel-good chemicals that we know that we want more of, everything from oxytocin, dopamine, endorphins, and we're going to talk quite a bit about serotonin and the release of serotonin. So all of those actually lower, they counteract the effects of cortisol, which especially as women, that's just one of those things that we build a lot of, and can cause some health issues, some discomfort, and who needs it, right? So some of you just shared some small wins, some of you shared some bigger wins, but I find this very interesting. We talk about in business that it's discipline, discipline, discipline. And as leaders especially, we often think about, how we maintain discipline. The old school leadership, I was always hearing we run a tight ship with our leadership, we maintain team discipline. And I found this in the Harvard Business Review is kind of what got me started on, this is going to be my topic today. It was actually Leezá's turn to present, so you'll get Leezá next month. But I came up with a topic on kind of short notice. So celebrating small wins actually stimulates dopamine release in the brain, a feel-good chemical that reinforces the learning experience, so we learn faster, and strengthens our sense of connection. One of the core needs that every human has in order to actualize, either self-actualize or actualize their potential in a team, is connection. So strengthens our sense of connection to those we work with. Change and growth are promoted through positive emotions more than through disciplined practice. So if you've been in this, I need to have more discipline in my practice. I need to have more discipline in my business or my team or my kids. You know, maybe you want to apply this to being a parent as well. The positive emotions actually outweigh the disciplined practice. I would put it this way. I just read you exactly what HBR wrote. I always look at it this way. Positive emotions actually reinforce the discipline of practice. They actually make practice easier, so we don't need so much discipline. So it's not an either or. It's absolutely if we want to have that disciplined practice, then the positive emotions make that easier, softer, gentler on ourselves, right? Because we're producing the dopamine. We're going to talk about how that fires and wires, and it's, you know, when we have that dopamine release, that we actually, I mean, we all know we can get addicted to the dopamine high, right? We're reward seeking beings. So we're always looking for that feeling of reward. So we're going to take this in 3 parts today. 1, celebration. You'll all notice that this was just shared. Perfect examples right there in the group. What did you do or what did you accomplish? So celebrating the action taken and the results achieved. 1 type of celebration. 2, what did you experience? Emotions, impulses, feelings. Sometimes we experienced, you know, when Rachel was noticing here's the celebration is that I noticed that I experienced the old structure of, you know, I had some guilt. I had this feeling that I had to go take care of what the other person wanted me to take care of. I had an impulse to go and help them. And I can notice and celebrate that I'm noticing it, and I'm not going to choose that in the future, right? And then the 3rd is, who were you in the experience? How did you identify? What demeanor did you have? How did you show up? You know, sometimes the celebration is everything went to hell in a handbasket, and I showed up calm and prepared, right? The celebration is not in the event, even the action. It's how you showed up. So those are the 3 things that we're going to focus on. What did you do or accomplish? What did you experience? And who were you in the experience? Let's actually.
Good, thank you. How about yourself?
We're gonna stop that for a minute, and let's yeah, there we go. So when we think about those 3 things, you can see big storm brewing. Yeah, gotcha. I'm checking in on chat. Yeah, that's so true, Monica, especially, you know, for you know, those of us that as I love the legacy years, Karen's, you know, we're in our legacy years, noticing that what we call the youth hormone is produced in the same place in the body as cortisol, but the body can only produce one or the other. So if we're in cortisol production, we're not producing DHEA, right? So that's a really good thing to remember as well, you know, for all of us. So what can you notice about, back to noticing, what can you notice about all the shares? The first thing I notice is there are examples of all 3 of those types of celebrations, right? You know, you can just go through it. We saw celebrations about action taken and results achieved. We saw celebrations about how it was experienced, you know, how it felt, or, you know, just feeling that, yeah, I felt more in charge of the situation of, you know, how did I show up to it? So we saw examples of that. Now I want you to check in and ask yourself, how do you feel after sharing your celebration, if you are able to share, or even listening to other people share their celebrations? How are you feeling? It's kind of like a little shot in the arm, isn't it? When you're really sharing the celebration. Who noticed that? Yeah? Yeah, same. I was just like, just being able to participate in that, even though I didn't share any celebrations with you, I got a shot in the arm as well. One of the things, there's several people that jumped in that do work with me in a private group setting. And we always start our Monday sessions. Mondays are our lenses sessions. Maybe we have a lens where we're looking into our creation. What are we creating? Where are we in progress? We always start with celebrations. So for them, this is a very common practice, but I do it for a reason. I realized I was talking with a client today, and I was thinking, when did I create this process? And it was when I was running a mastermind now almost 20 years ago that I was running a mastermind, and it was what's our agenda? And the agenda that I came up with is we're going to start with celebrations. Then we'll talk about challenges. Then we'll talk about our priorities, and then we'll talk about what we need in order to meet those priorities. And it worked so well that just kind of became my trademark, how we do group meetings. So we always start with celebrations, right? Which led me to do more research on what really happens. We have so much research on what happens when we're in gratitude. We have a lot of research on what happens in the brain and the body when we're in a state of gratitude. We have a lot of research on what happens in the brain and the body when we're in a state of compassion. And there's some really interesting changes that happen in the brain when we're in a state of compassion. But when we're in a state of celebration, there was actually less research. I had a harder time finding the research, and most of it's recent. So most of what I found was in 21 and 22. And I realized that some of it was prompted because of the pandemic. We were actually looking for research on what helps us to really feel deep connections, what helps us to feel connected internally and with those around us. And it turns out that being in celebration is one of those things. So a lot of it was wired to in leadership. It was, how do you celebrate people? Do you recognize their birthdays, right? Do you recognize their birthdays? Do you recognize their accomplishments in front of other people? And so what I want to talk about for the next few minutes, and then we're going to do some breakout sessions. Y'all are going to get to do some small group discussion and share. And what I'm going to ask you all to discuss is how you can take this in from a recognition of what you're celebrating into a practice of celebration that's actually going to create some transformation. Because let me go back to our shared screen, share something that may be a little more surprising for each of you. So there we go. So what actually happens when we make a practice of celebration? So when we're in the moment of celebration, we have a chemical response. We feel bonded. That's a short-term gain. It's kind of like with any other medication that you might take to change your mood and to change your state of being. It wears off, right? It's the well, that was great. It's a tool, but we don't want to become dependent, especially on the dopamine, because if we're associating certain behaviors with the dopamine hit, then we're going for the dopamine hit, right? We're not going for the actual reward. So here's what I want all of you to bring your focus to, is how to wire in your celebration to create a different brain, to create a different identity, so that that state that you create through celebration becomes your new normal, becomes your default state, instead of it becoming your, this is what I can create by getting into celebration. A practice of celebration is kind of like, we're giving that action kind of an upvote. It's like, yes, I upvote that action because this is how I feel. And we use the feeling to create that firing and wiring effect. The neurons that fire together, as we say, wire together when they happen in sequence until they start firing simultaneously. So the connection becomes instantaneous. So we're actually saying yes to receiving more of that end result. And here's why this is so important, even though, it's certainly not talked about as much. The biggest resistance that we have to creating new outcomes is when our belief structure, and especially our identity structure, says, that's just not me. That's just not me. I'm not a person who's ever done that. I can't see myself doing that. I really don't believe that's possible for me. Any of those phrases sounded all familiar to anybody? Like, that's not me. We have an identity structure that actually says, that's not okay for me to create. It might be okay for other people. I might believe it's possible, but it's not a me thing to do, right? And I could unpack identity for you all day. In fact, I've done full day immersions just on understanding the structure of our identity. But believe me, when I say, you know, that whole thing of to do what I want to do, my old identity has to die. There ain't no part of you that really wants to die. Believe me on that one. So when we are in the, my old identity has to die in order to create what I want to create, well, we understand that as a threat to who we think we are. And we don't have a working model for who we'll be if we kill off that identity. True? So it's like saying that has to die, but we have no idea what's going to take its place. You know, the identity says, hey, I've kept you alive this long and you want to kill me now? This doesn't seem okay, right? So it's like we just put on all the brakes to creating what we say we want to create when we start thinking that to shift our identity is all about the old identity dying. What we actually do through celebration is we create a new understanding of who we are. So the working model that I use for identity is simply this. Working definition, not going to find it in a dictionary, but it works for me, that it is simply the way that I currently understand, experience, and express my true self. So if I have a self that is everything that I am and could be, the way that I'm identifying right now is just the way that I understand that, the way that I'm experiencing that, and the way that I'm expressing that into the world. It's not me. It's, you know, it's one version of me. If it were really me, I would have been the same at 5 as I was at 15, as I was at 50. Yeah, that didn't work that way, right? We have many identities. So when you're in this state of celebration, you're firing and wiring in the actions, the results, right? The emotions, the impulses, the things that you notice, the things that have shifted. When you're firing and wiring that in, you are literally creating a new understanding of who you are. You're slowly transforming that identity. Well, I say slowly. Some of you that have done this work, you know it isn't really that slow, but it's not like I'm going to kill off my old identity so that I can create a new one. It's a transformation. I often think of the identity like a kaleidoscope. Like everything that kaleidoscope could possibly, you know, show up is already in there. Everything's just an arrangement of the same pieces. Well, our identity is kind of the same. So when you're in that state of celebration and you're using it as a practice to connect in the celebration, the emotion of the celebration, and the results that you're getting because of the celebration, you're literally turning that kaleidoscope, changing your understanding of your identity into, well, of course, I'm somebody who just creates a new business, hires somebody to develop a website, writes copy for it. I am that person, right? Of course, I'm a person who accepts that my side gig is kicking off and it's doing amazing. Of course, I'm a person that when a client has a medical emergency, I totally know what to do with that. Of course, I'm a person who steps into the role of a visionary. That's just what I choose to show up as, right? Of course, I'm that person. And it becomes the new normal for your identity. Last little piece, and then we're going to do a breakout. And here's the real key to bringing that into being, and it's this. So often we think of celebration as it's a checklist, right? It's just a, well, I'm celebrating this and I'm celebrating this and I'm celebrating this. It's like we're reviewing the past week or the past month or the past quarter or the past year or whatever. And we're saying, these are the good things. This is the good stuff. But there's no actual celebration that's getting through to the unconscious. So celebration isn't something that's just all in your head. That's not how we create firing and wiring. For a practice of celebration to be a path to transformation, the message has to get to the unconscious, which means we're using emotions. We're using those chemical responses. We're using our muscles, meaning we're actually smiling and laughing. We're sitting up. We're maybe, doing a happy dance and toasting. We're letting that message get into the unconscious through the body, through the emotional signals, through the neurology. We're using physiology to wire it in, not psychology to create it. Does that make sense? And so really, when we're changing our identity, we want to celebrate the action, celebrate the outcomes, and celebrate the transformations. So here's what I would love for you to do. I'm going to stop the share. Nice. We're going to go into breakout sessions. So I think about 3 people to a room feels good. And I would love for each of you in your breakout session now to take the celebration that you started with and really look at it through that lens of how can I celebrate some action? What action went into that celebration? Sometimes I'm going to remind you, action is what we call feminine action. It's not doing. Action can be just as much I'm going to sit right here and keep my mouth shut as it is I'm going to stand up and speak out, right? It can be I'm going to dream something up that's brand new. That's a feminine action. And then we go out and do it. That's a masculine action, right? So I want you to notice both the feminine and masculine actions. I want you to notice the outcomes in your celebration. And I really want you to notice the shifts. What shifts did you either experience in order to create the celebration, or what shifts are coming about because of that celebration? So notice your shifts in your abilities, your emotional acuity, like how tuned in are you to your own emotion and the emotions of other people, your stamina, your grace under pressure, like how do you show up? So any questions about what we want to do in our breakout? Yeah, it's true, Christy. The research about celebrations is partly because we're not encouraged to celebrate ourselves. Even most of the research that's been done about celebrations is about celebrating something, not ourselves. It's about holiday celebrations. It's about birthday celebrations. It's about, celebrating, a team accomplishment. It wasn't just the stop and celebrate, these 3 things. What action did you take? What outcomes did you create? What transformation can you notice? Right? It's true. Yeah. And to Rachel's point, we're always celebrating, toddlers. We got a lot of celebrations of just us. And then, once we got to a certain age, we weren't supposed to need that anymore. Our brain always needs it because it's the way that we tell that level of our consciousness what we actually value and want more of. Yeah. Oh, that old question. What will I have to do? Who will I have to become? You are, you have. It's there. Let's do it. All right. So if you do not want to join a breakout room, now would be a good time to either let me know or just drop off the call and come back we're going to take about 20 minutes for discussion. So probably 3 people or so to a room. So we ready? Let me start some breakout rooms. Let's see. Go with 3. All right, so I'll see you back in about 20 minutes. And here you are coming back, probably whether you liked it or not.
Oh, it's fine.
We weren't finished. Good incentive for y'all to connect, LinkedIn or wherever. So yeah, it's a good time for all of you to drop your connection information into chat if you're open to LinkedIn requests, or if you have another preference, good time to drop that in, and then we're going to we're going to have some fun talking about what you talked about. So can't wait to hear what came up. Yeah, nice. We'll get, LinkedIn, email, your calendar if you just want to have one-on-ones, whatever you would like as a meeting place. So can I ask you just to use the little hand raise down by reaction? So if you look, it may be under the more, don't know where it is for all of you, and it depends on if you're a phone, laptop, desktop. But if I can just get you to use that little hand raise, because that puts you in the corner of my screen, so I can very easily see who's ready to share. So if you'd like to share something that came out of your breakout room conversation, just put your hand up, and we'll see what came of that. Yeah, I tell you all to type something into chat and then ask you to raise your hand. Well, y'all are so powerful. I figured you can do both things at once, right? Are you telling me you really can't? No, I get it. I get it. So anybody ready to share your discussion? Any big ahas, any new celebrations? Amy, go ahead.
I couldn't get the hand up there fast enough.
Oh, good. I can see you. Sometimes if we have enough people on the screen, I see hands moving, and I think they raised their hands when they were just moving their hair. So, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think for us, there's so many different things that we went to, but one of the things I picked up on and kind of ran with was like, well, how much is enough of recognition? How much is enough? When did we recognize that we have enough instead of constantly trying to do more? I think it was Rachel. Was it Rachel that said that she needed to do more? I don't remember who it was. But feeling like she needs to do more recognition or more of this, and we could start doing this type of recognition and celebrating ourselves. But how much is enough? And
that's such a good question of pretty much anything, isn't it? This is the whole identity thing. So one reason I built celebration into a regular practice, that it's part of our creation process that I use with clients. It does kind of, Rachel is like, that sounds like something Rachel might have said, is when it's part of your practice, it's not I need to do more or I've forgotten to do it. It's right there in your creation practice, that every time you're reviewing, we call them lenses, but like you're reviewing a week, you're reviewing a month, you start with, okay, what am I celebrating about that period of time? And then am I noticing the celebrations? It's not a quantity thing. So part of that is to get us out of that. I don't recognize myself enough. Or then we get into if I keep recognizing myself, I'm a bright arm, pat myself on the back, and we're not supposed to, self-aggrandize ourselves and all that sort of thing. So we don't have to do, is it bumper sticker worthy? That's another little Rachel and my group thing, is sometimes things come out of my mouth and they'll be like, that's a bumper sticker. You need to, I have no idea what I said half the time, but really notice that when you're making a practice out of what we did today, that it's, you have a reflection period. We do a week at a time every week. We look at the week. What are you celebrating about last week? And then it's just, did I notice the celebrations? We don't have to ask how much is enough, because enough is when you've recognized what there is there to celebrate, right? Did I see everything that's in the picture? It's like, one of those pictures that they give you for to prove that you're human. I kind of know y'all are human, but it's like, click on every picture that has a bus in it. I just want you to click on every picture that has a celebration in it. And then that's enough. You're good. Does that make sense? Because I love that question. How much is enough to create the effect of transformation? It's not about how much. Really, it's about how connected is it. How connected are you, how are you connecting the emotion of celebration with the action you take, the outcomes you get, and what you want to have in the world? So anything else? Did anything else come out of that for you, Amy, as I was giving you feedback? What else came up?
I think that was pretty much it. I had brought up being, we look at other people and see what they're doing, and we judge ourselves. We judge ourselves against what we see other people doing. We're Instagram, as a former educator, looking, the Pinterest teacher, and what we see what they've done, and we go, oh my gosh, I'm not that person. But you didn't have, I said, well, you didn't have a gang fight in your hallway and some kid actually learned and you didn't have to call a parent. You're doing a great job. That person may have had a different leg up on certain things, or they're more creative and they can get that stuff done. But you know what? You're doing this, this, and this, and to celebrate what we are accomplishing. And for me, it's been eye-opening to start a new business myself from scratch. And I see other people doing this, and I'm like, well, they had to do it too. We've all had to start somewhere, and to be able to create our business and stop comparing ourselves and just be thankful that we're here. What did I say? Something about, I said, look, we're here, we're breathing, we're women in this thing. We may or may not be wearing a bra. Guess what? We can. It's just like, we're here. And,
so we take a vote on who is and who isn't? No, because it doesn't matter, right?
Right. And it's a great experience. And,
I love that you brought up comparison too. So we limit our celebrations through is it big enough to celebrate? Is it like significant enough? Because here's this person doing this, and clearly they're going to celebrate that because, wow, and then really is my thing big enough? And we use it like, let other people's celebrations help you notice what you have to celebrate, So, this person had time to post on Pinterest and make everything look pretty. Well, I had time to help some kids that were going to, ruin their future. I had time to do that, and I have the talent to do that. So if you see somebody, sharing their celebration of something that's their talent, then you can use that as an inspiration to say, and how did I use my talents this week or today or in the last 5 minutes or whatever that I can celebrate, right? Because really, it's not just about making yourself feel better. This is what I really want all of you to change today. If you've been in that, I celebrate to boost my mood, it does. Or I celebrate to offset stress, it does. What I'm hoping is that you'll celebrate to completely transform who you think you are, because it does. Monica.
Yeah, that's been something that's been on my mind lately. Like you mentioned, we celebrate things, right? How about celebrating impact?
Mm-hmm.
When you see that I had impact on this situation, I changed something for that person. There may not be, like a goal or a dollar or an ROI as such, but I made an impact in that situation and changed something in that situation.
And that's the outcome. That's exactly when I say, celebrate your actions and celebrate your outcomes. Sometimes the outcome is I just release some stress for somebody else. Or, I'll just make that random person that clearly was not feeling good about themselves today, maybe feels a little better about themselves. Those are outcomes. We tend to think outcomes are the big accomplishments. Monica, you're absolutely, those times that we have impact. And I always say, impact has ripples. It's like when the stone hits the water, it has an impact, right? But that impact creates ripples. So we usually don't even know the extent of the outcomes that we create. Yeah, that's such a good point about how to celebrate outcomes. Is sometimes it's those little outcomes. Yeah, Christy.
Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to a little bit back to the how much is enough conversation, because it just reminded me too of how wonderful a feeling is. And we talked about this a little bit in the group I was in, What a great phrase self-permission is. And so how great it is once you start celebrating yourself, because we're not encouraged to do that as a society, as humans, but once you start, then there's that moment of almost where you can't stop. It's like, oh, here's another one. Oh, yeah, and then it's that. And I don't think enough is ever too much. I think, that's the whole idea. We're celebrating our growth, our path, our journey. How can it help but become something good for somebody else, for other people, And it's the same thing. I find the same thing with gratitude. Dixie, you know my story. At times in my life, the things that have happened, I've had to teach myself how to be happy again. And I started with challenging myself, just find one thing to be grateful for every day. And, at the end of a week, okay, up to 2. And by the time I'm in week 3, I'm like, do I have to stop at 3? No, you don't have to stop at 3. You never have to stop. That's the thing with gratitude, with celebrations, with being who you truly are, with striving for that life, create that life you love. By the way, once you create the life you love, you can keep creating it and it keeps getting better. And you keep loving it even though shit happens, So I don't think there's ever enough. I think keep doing it, because all of that genuine positivity, I hate the expression toxic positivity, but I guess maybe it's a thing, but all of the genuine positivity that comes from these moments of just recognizing ourselves for who we are and for all of the power that we hold and sometimes withhold without knowing it. I think it's fantastic, and I think it only makes us stronger and more willing to go out there and share and find the people who are going to be receptive, maybe for some of their lives in a situation where they've never been open to that before. But boy, if you're the one who's in that spot at that moment, then you get to be that person who introduces them to a new way of thinking and a new way of living their lives.
New way of showing up to themselves. This is the leadership part to me, is that I notice leaders, and to Christy's point about genuine positivity, leaders in businesses, often their idea of making a practice of celebrating people is, they keep track of their birthdays, or they make a point of calling people out, in a stand-up meeting for something that they did or whatever. But it's a strategy. No, it's not. It's a tactic. Okay, it's just tactical, because they've never learned to celebrate. They don't celebrate themselves. They don't celebrate their own impact in the world. They don't celebrate their own transformations. They don't have it as a practice. So having that, it's a strategic thing to have people celebrate so that we bond, so that we can be in, less stress and all that. That's all it is. They're not in that state themselves. So they can't bring that state into their business, into their client work, into their teams, into their leadership. You can't bring it into something what you don't have. That's just true, right? So as leaders, when we become conscious of celebration, not as a strategy or tactic, but as a practice of transformation, then we can bring that into our leadership with our clients, with our teams, with our communities, with our kids, with, whatever. Then it becomes accessible to us. So I love that. Who else? We've got we go till the 30 past. We've got time for a little more share. If anybody's got something that you would like to share that came out of your discussion, or just something that's come up and become present for you. Anything else that you want to share?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Back to the when is enough, and also judging ourselves based on our reality to another's highlight reel, to the point that Amy had mentioned about the bra thing. And, it was with a list when we first started talking about it, a list of all the things that we do throughout the day. And I brought up back when my brother died, there were times I would wake up and I would put on my bra, and I remember this very vividly, and I would get up and go through the motion. I put on the bra and walk to my kitchen, and I just went, nope. And I just turned around and walked right back in and went back to bed. And so there, when we throw something that we might think is trivial, like as a woman, and if a gentleman were to see this later, it is what it is. There's enough bra commercials out there. We all know how it works. But what might be trivial to one, that was a huge thing for me at that time. Because not only just getting up and getting out of bed, but that was another step of getting out of bed. But that's all the farther I was going to take it that day, but was still such a win. So sometimes we judge ourselves. Yeah, that on these, what did I write down? Sorry, we judge, hold on, I'm going to flip to my other page. Sorry, I turned the page.
She's got bumper stickers in there.
I don't remember who said this, but limiting our celebrations through comparisons.
Yeah.
When that was a huge celebration that day
that sounds
for me.
like what Amy was sharing about. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Which would make sense. And that's where bras came up. And that was a huge win for me at that time, just to keep moving in those little bits. So, yeah, this is it.
And sometimes we can just celebrate that we were kind to ourselves and we were responsive to our own needs. Another thing leaders forget to celebrate is to stop and just celebrate that, and this is something that I had to teach myself, because I used to celebrate that I was tough enough to get up and do it anyway. That was my celebration. And seriously, what you celebrate is what you become. And so I just became tougher and tougher until I could power through. My thing was, if I'm not dead or dying, I'll be there. Right? That's how tough I wanted to be. And so I celebrated that toughness. What I wasn't celebrating is that I didn't have to be tough. I was absolutely strong enough to give myself the grace and to catch up later. I'm plenty strong enough to catch up later. I'm plenty strong enough to delegate. I'm plenty strong enough to, give somebody instruction and go back to bed. But I never celebrated that until, I don't know, the last maybe 6, I was living in toxic mold for a while, and I wasn't tough enough for that. I'm not sure there is a tough enough for that, but it wasn't me. That stuff will kill you. It certainly destroyed a lot of things. But after that, my thing was, I'm going to celebrate that I know that I can survive. I know that I can, at that point, I wasn't coaching. I didn't coach for 3 years because of what that does to your brain. So I was making a living writing. I'm like, wow, I'm really going to celebrate that I'm a good enough writer that I could make a living doing it. And, I'm going to celebrate that I'm going back to coaching, and I'm going to celebrate that I learned something. I can be strong without being tough. So sometimes we can just celebrate. I'm going to celebrate being kind to myself and know I'm strong enough that if I need to make up some work tomorrow because I gave myself some grace today, I can do that. Right? Yeah. Any last minute thoughts? We've got maybe time for another quick share. And then I can't believe how fast 90 minutes goes. We think we got 90 minutes. That's a lot of time. And then we are like, wait a minute, we've spent 90 minutes? That didn't feel like a lot of time. Rachel, did you have one more thing, or was that I'm going to go? Or
I want to throw out.
I think she's got her hand up too. So.
Oh, I was going to throw out, Nicole was very quiet in her group, but when she spoke towards the end, huge celebration. She took a big step in her career and stepping into another career. And you had also mentioned, Dixie, about the feminine and the masculine. We didn't really touch on that because I'll be honest, to me, I still get confused on that. But I wanted to, because our groups ended while Nicole was talking, and I wanted to celebrate you, Nicole, on taking that step.
Nice. And that's the beautiful thing, isn't it, about groups? That, if you're not in the practice of celebrating yourself, out loud and proud, somebody will do it for you. Edie, you had one closing thought for us, dear.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I think when we really do what we love, if we're true to our soul's code and calling in life, life is just one continuous celebration. I really think it's just a continuum. I really do.
I know that it is. Yeah, this is not even a thought process. This is my observation of my life. So
Yeah.
beautiful. I want to leave you with this, that everything that we experience is about choice and focus. It's about choice and focus. In The Truth About Winter, which I published this spring, there's a scene that I just come back to. I wrote it because it spoke to me. I think about it often because it still speaks to me. And the character is not focused on the positive, shall we say. And another character says, come here and look at this. What do you see? She says, I see a rose bush. And then he takes her head and pushes her right up into a blooming, the bloom of a rose. Now what do you see? Well, all I can see is the rose. Just a slight shift. And there's one of those thorns. He says, now what do you see? All I can see is a thorn. Imagine the difference in emotion. We see a rose bush. We just appreciate the rose bush. We see a rose and we're overwhelmed with beauty. We see a thorn and we are terrified. And it is just a matter of focus and perception. That's all that changes our emotional state. So it is absolutely not about ignoring the thorns, right? We acknowledge the thorns, but when we celebrate, we focus on what we want more of. It's just bringing your focus into, that's what I'm creating. Thorns happen. You don't get the rose without the thorn. Well, they've tried, they don't smell good. So let's not do that. But you don't get the rose without the thorns. Allow that they happen and bring your focus back to, but what am I creating more of? I'm creating more blooms. So if I celebrate the blooms, then that's what I become, is a person who has lots of blooms. So for all of us, here's to having lots of blooms. One last slide, because I've got some suggestions about your practice and it's easier to share it than just to tell you. So here's the suggestion to take away from today. Add celebrations to your review and reflection process for yourself and others. Just like we did today. Just like we did today. Ask how you can celebrate even when things are going wrong. So just like things went wrong, but I can celebrate that I had the presence of mind, like, Christy shared, or we can celebrate that, I was frazzled, but I'm really stepping into my role as a visionary. Like, wow, it's allowed to be, frazzled and still be a visionary and a leader. And then get in your feelings about it. It's not a checklist, it's an experience. Get in your feelings about it. So those three things, add the celebrations to your review and reflection process. Ask how you can celebrate when things go wrong, what you can celebrate about yourself, and then get in your feelings. So those are the suggestions. Do I see the rose bush has thorns, or am I happy some thorn bushes have roses? It's an identity thing, right? I identify them as rose bushes, and I just happen to know rose bushes come with thorns, and I'm okay with that. So thank you all for being here. We'll have Leezá back with us next month, so she'll have something to share with all of us. But I appreciate every one of you for co-creating this with me. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.